Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle. Once again, it is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations. Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart radio application. Download today. It is free. Our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. No great way to start this program. Yesterday, I talked about Brian Bresee, his sister Ella, my hope for the situation, my concerns, and just I'm a hopeful guy. I probably lean in on the positive, maybe a little too much. And when we got the news over the weekend that Ella Bresee had visited Clemson on Wednesday and spoke with the team, but then had to be rushed back home, airlifted back home before Clemson's kickoff with Furman, there was absolutely an air of caution and concern. I even said yesterday when the news came out that Brian Bresee was nominated for the Orange Bowl Courage Award. Like, I had a sinking feeling in my heart that when I saw his name, it was going to be the tragic passing of his younger sister, Ella. And we were fortunate that was not the case yesterday. We are not that fortunate today. Brian Bresee posted early this morning. We had it on our website by 7:35, that his little sister Ella passed away at the age of 15 due to brain cancer. It's not the show that I wanted to do today. It's not the show that you wanted to hear today. And I'm taken back almost I'm taken back to points in my life. So when I was young, my mother was diagnosed with, she had some brain cancer and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she did eventually pass away. So immediately, even pictures of Ella with her, bald head reminded me of seeing my mom like that when I was a teenager. And, my mom's hair never grew back after all the radiation and treatment and chemotherapy and everything that she had. She wore wigs and was quite the personality with it, to be honest with you, and including somebody, if they would maybe compliment her, like a student that she taught would compliment her on her hair, she might give them the old, jerk the wig off. But, seeing Ella in that capacity, seeing pictures today that Brian posted of his sister, my heart aches for this family, for these parents, for Brian, his siblings. I'm reminded, and I'll spare the name of the family, but a similar situation when I was growing up to a family in my hometown who lost a daughter right about the same age. And, I think at this time for Brian, and I am not a counselor. I don't officially know all the stages of grief. But what I imagine Brian is dealing with right now, and his family are dealing with, is similar to what I felt when I lost my mom at such a young age. It's there's a There's a helplessness. There's a hopefulness. There's a thankfulness for the opportunity that you had to share, time on earth with that person. And, I thought about Brian, and he's kind of become it's what's tragic for Brian in this, outside of the obvious losing his younger sister, a sibling that was close to him in age, and somebody that he kind of grew up protecting, being that big brother for. What's tough for Brian in this is that so much of this focus of Ella Strong, like I thought the shirts that Clemson had were beautiful. I thought the shirts were amazing that Clemson wore this past weekend. And I'm sure you're going to see them again probably this week before the Louisiana Tech game. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me, if you see these shirts throughout the year during the Tiger Walk at Clemson. But for Brian, he didn't choose to be the face of the family. He didn't choose to be the guy whose name is attached with his younger sister passing away. And I would imagine that can be a bit of a burden, feel burdensome for you. And back to the shirts, right? Like they were Ella Strong, but they had his number 11 on there. And again, the significance, the last name, Brian Bresee, his sister, like all of that comes into it. But a lot of this weight, I think, is going to fall on Brian. And kudos to the South Carolina Gamecocks program for their tweet. Kudos to Mac Brown for his tweet and all the other people that have poured in from Gamecocks, Tigers, Bulldogs, Yellow Jackets, and Seminoles to lift this family up during the darkest of days for them. And for Brian, the thing is, every time he speaks with the media, and you already kind of saw this, I felt bad. I'm going to be honest. I felt bad for Dabo Swanny last night when he got asked another question about whether or not Brian Bresee would be playing in this game on Saturday. And look, as a member of the media, I understand there are questions that we sometimes have to ask. But I couldn't turtle myself up quick enough when I heard the question. Because Dabo Swanny was all over it with his response. There are things that are bigger than football. And Brian was in and still is in the right spot during this situation with his family. It was the right move to fly home. It was the right move to be back. And so there's a couple of fronts on this that I think Brian's going to carry, unfortunately. Everywhere he goes, people are going to remind him. And that's a tough thing to bear at 20, 21 years old. And I can't imagine. I mean, as a parent with 2 kids, I can't imagine what his parents are going through today. I can't imagine what any of you listening who have had the unfortunate circumstance of bearing a child, what feelings and emotions this conjures up for you internally. But I want you to know that when I think and pray about Brian Bresee and his family and his parents, there's a part of that that's for you. There's a part of that that's for you. And I hope that you're uplifted. And I hope that the message that we could send, and I've learned this my entire life, and I learned it probably too young. And I probably made a simplistic comparison at 16 or 17 when trying to explain my understandings of life and the time we have here. But we are all we are all like a little ticking time bomb. And you don't know how long was programmed on your clock. And so you have to appreciate every moment. I'm not a perfect parent. I wish I was. I wish I was. I think I'm a good parent. I think I do right by my own children. I think I'm hard on them, maybe sometimes to a fault, because I want to see greatness out of them. And things like this day put life into perspective. They put football into perspective. Now, for me, I love playing basketball growing up. Played basketball my entire life except for 1 year, the year after my mother passed away. I did not play. I didn't have it in me. Didn't feel right to, kind of get back to normal, if you will. And I look back on that moment and I'm kind of disappointed in myself to a degree that I didn't just say, you know what, I'm going to go do this. But I had to deal with this emotionally my own way. And that's what Brian Bresee is going to do. And whether Brian Bresee is back for Wake Forest, back for NC State, first game back in South Carolina in November, that's fine. That's Brian's timeline. If Brian chooses to never play another snap of college football, if that's what he chose, that's his right. But I think it's going to affect him one of two ways, I think, on the field. First off, I think it's going to give him an incredible amount of purpose and passion and intensity when he does come back. I don't know that you'll see a guy on the field at Clemson that'll run with a higher motor. I truly don't. I think he'll, most likely return with that type of attitude. He'll carry his sister in his heart, and he will fight every single snap to appreciate and enjoy the opportunity that he still has here on this earth in this life. And then I think that his leadership, I think that his willingness to kind of gather the team around him and all begin pulling in one direction. Like, I think this could be a catalyst moment, for this team as well. A purposeful moment. DJ Uiagalelei was Brian Bresee's roommate. I don't know if they still are. I know at one time they were freshmen. I know they certainly know each other's family. DJ had some really unbelievable things to say about Ella Bresee this week. You consistently heard the team talking about her. And, I think that her visit to Clemson on Wednesday and getting a chance to speak to the team, the more I think about it and the setback, I thought in my brain, I was like hopeful, like, all right, that's a good sign. She's here. She's doing that. And now with the timing and the way things happen, I'm starting to think that was Ella taking an opportunity to look those young men, her brothers, for lack of a better word, to look them in the eye and talk to them about what it truly means to fight, what it truly means to love. And I think that was, for her, I think that was like that moment where she stood in front of some of the great athletes in college football. And she was the star. And she was the leader. And she was setting the example of what it means to have fire in your heart and determination in your soul. And that little lady, that young lady, fought and I just think that that moment in the grand scheme of time may have been short and small for her at Clemson. But I think the legacy, the memory is going to be grand. And I've seen people say, hey, you know, gray is the color for brain cancer. Maybe Clemson fans can wear gray this weekend. I think that's a beautiful idea. I mean, I have gray on today just out of circumstance. Just and this is what I put on this morning, and I had no clue that Ella Bresee had passed away. But that is the news, unfortunately. And you know, I just tend to lean in on my experiences losing a parent as a young child and my time watching somebody I loved, you know, fight and eventually succumb to cancer. And the thing about it is this, right? Like, my mom's been dead for 29 years, but she's still very much alive. And her impact in my hometown, in my community, lasts to this day. There are people who have named their children, there are family members that have, but there are just people in the community who have named their children after her. It said, I named my child after your mom because she was such a great teacher. She loved me as an educator, and that's why I wanted to honor her. And I think, how do you live a life? And I would challenge you. How do you live a life with so much purpose and so much love and passion and commitment that other people want to honor you when your time here is done, so that your legacy and your impact can continue? As an educator myself, I'm flabbergasted at the impact my mother must have had on people's lives. And I hope in my role in that capacity, I can as well. I hope here on this show, I can be a beacon of hope and a light for many of you. And I think that's what Ella Bresee was for the Clemson Tiger football team. And I think she will continue to be that for the Clemson community as people wrap their arms around the Bresee family. There is no great way to open a show on a day like this. So I think it's best that we end this segment with just a moment of silence. Stay with us.